Before we get into it, if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. All right, folks, here we are on Tuesday, February 18th. We're going to take a look at Grab today. So Grab got on everyone's radar on X, it seems. I first saw it from my buddy Stonkstradamus on X. He's a really good follow if you are on X or if you want to get on X and have somebody who isn't as far as I know, isn't going to front run you, isn't going to blow smoke up your rear end. Same way that I try to not sort of paint too rosy a picture, just try to call it like I see it. He's really, really good, and he has slightly different things that he looks at. So look through his bio, look through his pinned posts and everything to sort of understand why he's saying what he's saying and what it is that he's looking for. But he is a tremendously good follow. I can't recommend him enough. So Grab at the moment sort of somehow became like the most beloved stock on X over the weekend. There's a ton of positive news items here, and it just kind of caught fire. And it, I mean, it's not like the craziest volatile stock. I say that, and then I look down here, and like a year ago, it was under $3. Right? So it's almost doubled in a year. But we've seen way crazier things than that. I'm talking about like Palantir crazy, or something like that. That's a different situation. But it had a nice plus 8% day today. Hopefully a bunch of folks didn't get super bagged because they piled in, and oftentimes when that happens, it can get really ugly really quickly. We'll see what the rest of the week brings, but these are the levels that I have on the chart. I actually have a few different looks at this, so we will take a look a few different ways. But here on the extension, I have the nearest in levels. So we can see how it's respecting off of these levels the last several days, right? Building up toward this 4.95, like that approach to $5 was kind of quite questionable. And then, this big gap up pre-market today, it didn't come down and fill that gap for the moment at least. So that's something to maybe just sort of keep in mind if it does come down and fill that gap that exists down here, in the high fours. But it did jump over, we see this a lot, it jumped over this 533 level and then rejected off of that 564. And what did it do as it was rejecting off the 564? It came down and put in a bunch of price action right at the level that it skipped. So pretty common. I've talked about this a lot in several videos the last few weeks. Skipping levels, great, can be awesome, but oftentimes if it's going to then take a breath or have a healthy consolidation period or pull back a little bit, those are the levels that I try to keep the strongest eye on. Say, what did it skip? Where might it want to come back and sort of put in some time or pay its dues? And that's exactly what happened here on sort of a micro scale today. Now, if it does continue to push, we have that 564 and then 595. So several levels to sort of work through here if there is an approach towards 6. If it does pull back further, 495, 434 are the levels I have in the chart. And then I did put in some additional levels. The only decent way I have to do this is to go back, but you can see where they came from this way. So there's this previous price action, and it's kind of clunky, but there are some good spots, like this drawdown here and it bouncing off of this level, there was a lot of buying pressure here right at about the $10 level previously, and it shot up, but then it looks like it got maybe kind of dusted here on an earnings, and then subsequently fell. Maybe some bad catalysts followed that earnings, I don't know, but this day it dropped 20%. The day before it dropped 13%. So then it let go of that $10 level, but it did then come down and it just started batting itself around between this 662 to the downside, 752 to the upside, and then it lost at 662, but it did come back and reconfirm resistance. So that just tells me that is a critical level, an important level, provided good support here, provided clear reconfirmation of resistance there, and then, the sell-off really picked up steam. But if it does continue to get frothy, and it gets through those $5 levels that I had on the chart, 662, 752, it's a big percentage in between those, right? The stock of this price, like a dollar between levels, is a big percentage. So other action will develop, but these are just sort of like goalposts to have in mind, to look for. And then, of course, 10, 13, there are some additional levels in here, but it's really thin price action to go off of. In these situations, I'm happy to throw something in there like probably like an 865 or so. Like that whole like mid to upper 8 level is probably pretty sticky. But aside from that, I'd prefer to let it put in more current price action if it does get up there, and then sort of work off of that. That'll be more informative if we get the opportunity. So these ones are the pile in on top of the $5 levels, $4 and $5 levels that I have in the current price action right here. Now, taking a look at the EMAs, nice sort of wave ride here, if you will. We did get bearish crossovers here, both of the 8 and the 21 crossing below the 34. So, pretty bold effort there by Grab, actually coming down, being able to handle both of those bearish crossovers, right? Everything was in a bearish formation, and now it's crossed back over. And just today has gotten the 21 back over the 34. So we're once again in a fully bullish formation. It'll be interesting to see if it does, or when it does make contact with that 8 EMA again, does it bounce right off of it? What does it look like? It did that right here, and there's that inside bar that Stockstradamus is always on the lookout for, and came in just as the stock was pulling back into that 8 EMA inside bar, and then bang. I think the thing that really helped it here on this bearish crossover situation where it was able to hold on was, the fact that it's situated above this 183 EMA, that in my consideration, the way that I look at it is I consider that to be in a bullish phase. So to me, the bulls have a hold of the stock. They're in control until the price comes below. Then I consider it to be in a bearish formation or in a bearish phase. So it being in a bullish formation, taking a bigger breath back, taking a bigger breath, pulling back a little bit more than maybe you would see very often, not making contact with the 183, and now coming through. It'll be, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see what it does when it makes contact again with these EMAs. That'll sort of tell me like, okay, was this sort of like, folks rushed in there, propped the stock up, but for all intents and purposes, it wanted to come down and test the 183 EMA. I don't know, but we'll see next time it makes contact with that 8 EMA. Volume-wise, if we look at sort of, from the $3 level or so, decent sized shelving actually through this whole range. Thins out a bit, but not anything wild. And there's more thin spots below where there were some of these gaps initially. They look like they've been filled, but still pretty thin in those ranges, especially this one. But yeah, a bunch of opportunity for it to sort of find some security up here, plenty of volume. If that flips to sell side volume, then sure, you might have some trouble, but we'll see. Short interest, coming up recently, and they're holding on for quite a few days, 4 or 5 days. So that's quite a bit, but I don't know. I didn't check iBorrowDesk to see what the fee is and to see how many available shares there are. So as long as there are a decent amount of available shares and the fee is not that high, to my mind, this wouldn't sort of warrant anything like a gamma squeeze or a traditional short squeeze. But if those are high, well, if the fee is high and the available shares are low, then yeah, maybe we can take another look at that, another video if folks are interested. 63.78% total profited shares as of close on Friday. Hasn't updated yet for today. So There will likely be some more profited shares today, unless the volume was really crazy outpaced. We'll see when that comes in. But it starts to get high, and I start to wonder, where's the buying pressure going to come from? To me, being down here in the 60s, 70s, maybe even like toward 80, I don't sort of put too much emphasis on that. When we get into the 90s, total profited shares in the 90s, I do start to wonder where's the buying pressure going to continue to come from, but to my mind, we're not there yet. And when things do get 90s and above, that's when you could be close to or at all-time highs, and you don't necessarily want to bet against a stock in the short term that is pushing to and through all-time highs. So the buying pressure still comes. It's just, I wonder about sort of the sustainability of it. Lots of large-scale orders coming in today, a bunch dumping out. I don't know if that was just before their earnings, maybe. But yeah, maybe some risk aversion there, and then buying back more expensive shares maybe, and then buying more expensive shares today. So interesting, but I guess when you have that level of asset and skill and financial backing, then maybe you make your decisions differently. So that's the look that I have here. Now we'll flip over to the think or swim side of things, and we have pressed through the ATR levels now for February, which doesn't mean that it can't keep going, but that +1 ATR for February is situated at 533, so we're just perched a little bit above that at the moment. If it continues on and with the good sort of bullish vibes, the March levels right now are situated call trigger at 548 and a +1 ATR at 608. If things pull back in March, we have a put trigger right now at 512, -1 down to 452. The -1 for February is situated all the way down at 383. So, but right now, yeah, I mean, unless this is a real sort of like elevator down moment for some reason, which there could be, but unless there is, like, those levels feel unlikely at the moment. But TTM squeeze indicator wise, back here, we had a pretty lengthy trigger and fire, and that set off this really nice move, right? So if you had bought in here when it first fired, you would have bought maybe, low threes, like 3.25, 340, something like that. And this whole set off this whole motion. So you could have nearly doubled your money. And that set off in September, right? So a few months, park the money in some shares, take some profit at some point. And it's been sort of herky-jerky since then, right? A bunch of sort of blips. Blip in the trigger, fire, trigger, lengthy fire, and then trigger, fire, trigger. If we take the fires out of the middle of those triggers, and we just consider this as a trigger and a fire, then maybe it catches this downside move a bit, and then it recovers a little bit as it's triggering again, and now it's sort of fresh 4 or 5 candles into its fire now. So we'll see if that can add any oomph to it, pick up any steam on that front. But ATR levels wise, looking good, wrestling a little bit with the upper bound of that channel, but as you see, it has broken through that in the past. And if you look at the ATR levels, for example, from November, right, it flew way past them, basically hit the December level almost in November, and then couldn't quite get back there in December. All right, folks, so I hope that your trading week is off to a good start, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.